Well, first of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that.
Now, Terrell, run the road again!
Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay?
Their fat little girlfriends have some obvious advantages. For one thing, their fat little girlfriends are telling them what they want to hear.
It's Division I football! Hey here, murals!
And we are live and back here with another episode of the Hoppe Huddle podcast. Today, we are reacting to Week 6, which was unbelievable. Like, maybe the best weekend of college football in my lifetime, certainly that I can specifically remember. Like, just an insane weekend, upsets all over across the board. And if I could use an analogy to describe this weekend of college football, it would go like this. On a Monday in 1987, the stock market crashed, and it was known as Black Monday, and stocks of major companies tanked all over the place. And I think this Saturday should be called Black Saturday, because stocks of major teams absolutely tanked out of nowhere all over the place in the country today, and it was a joy to watch.
Yeah, all season long in preseason, we've been looking forward to October 12th, next weekend, because that was the weekend we were going to get these big ranked matchups. Little did we know that October 5th was going to be the day that it was the explosion Saturday with all these games. We have so much to talk about.
Unbelievable.
And I actually remember Black Monday. I'm so old. But anyway, I'll tell you about that later. So that's for another podcast. But anyway, yeah, what a great day. That was a fun day yesterday. Lots of some great matchups, some finishes. And I admit, I couldn't stay up and watch the Cal-Miami game. I had to get up this morning and watch the condensed version. But even that was a great game. Takes us late into the night, the late night ACC action. We're going to definitely get to that one today. A lot of good games to talk about.
Yeah, it was incredible. I was able to stay up and watch that Cal-Miami game. Incredible, one of the best games of the day. But man, that's a high floor to meet, because the games of the day were out of this world, just nuts. And so I think we should start with what's clearly been maybe the gold star on this weekend of upsets, and that was the Colorado State-Oregon. No, I'm just kidding. Vanderbilt beating Alabama at home. My goodness. Kalen DeBoer, run for the hills. They're coming after you in Tuscaloosa. No, but Diego Pavia is the chosen one. He, in the interview afterwards, he mentioned that he saw a vision of this, that God gave him a vision of beating Alabama as a child. And he apparently has watched the Johnny Manziel beating Alabama game hundreds of times to prepare for this moment over the course of his life. And if that is not even the most insane thing that happened during the game, which was, Diego Pavia throwing for over 200 yards. Vanderbilt didn't just lose or didn't just beat Alabama in the typical way that you beat Alabama, with an insane quarterback performance and just some turnovers and some bad plays, which they did have a great quarterback performance. But Vanderbilt absolutely out-physicaled Alabama, which is not something I would have thought ever happening, ever. In the history of college football, Vanderbilt was clearly more physical, and they just out-muscled Alabama. They whipped them at the line of scrimmage, both on offense and on defense. Vanderbilt's offensive line basically established their will. They ran the ball. They basically did the strategy of hold the ball and chew clock, where in the college football video game, where they just had almost 38 minutes of possession or something insane. And they led the entire game. They did not trail once. They kept their foot on the gas, and it was not a fluky win, which is, in my opinion, the most surprising part of it.
Yeah, boy, I got a lot of thoughts on this game.
There's so many.
It was a great game. It was outstanding. Yeah, led to wire to wire. We'll get to the SEC later, because I've got a lot of thoughts about that too. We said earlier in our previous weeks, we had some concerns about Bama's defense, and I thought it was mostly the secondary. And I think it was more than the secondary in this game. And I think the stat, I don't know if I think I texted you this, or maybe it's texted someone else. Bama's given up 67 points now in the last 6 quarters. And I think we're starting to see the difference in a Kalen DeBoer team versus a Nick Saban team. This never would have happened to a Nick Saban team. And, clearly Kalen DeBoer understands offense. He has done a great job offensively with this program, with them. I think he's taken Jalen Milroe. I think they're starting to really hit their strides. And, certainly they didn't have problems scoring today. But defensively, I got to wonder what's going on here. It's not a lack of 4 and 5 stars, but something's not right. And, boy, do they – I mean, you think Caleb Downs could have helped out a little bit in this game? I mean, in that secondary?
I don't think Caleb Downs would have made Bama more physical on the line of scrimmage.
No, but could he have solved some of the other problems? So, I mean, I think you've got a defensive problem with Bama that I don't think's going away. Maybe they get better. Again, I'm not smart enough to know if it's a scheme issue or if it's what's going on there. But this is not what we would expect from a traditional Bama team. I mean, Bama hasn't lost to an unranked opponent since 2007. This is a long time coming for Bama.
Yeah.
So I think this is a problem with this Bama team. I think we felt like this was going to be defensively was going to be a problem with this Bama team this year, especially on their secondary. Vandy just took advantage of it, and Diego Pavia played a great game.
80% completion, 252 yards passing. Just 16 for 20. Like, he was fantastic, but they also ran the ball really effectively.
They did. I mean, they had more yards than Bama. The thing is, normally when we see Bama losing, and this is the Nick Saban, this is the Bama we think of in the last 15 years, something weird's happened. There's been a weird fumble or an interception, or Bama's made mistakes or things, or they played Georgia, or they played a team that's just been on their par with quality of athletes.
Yeah.
Vandy doesn't have those type of athletes, and Vandy just really owned this game. So this was kind of surprising. I don't think any of us saw this coming. So I don't know. Is this something we're going to see the rest of the year? I'd be a little concerned if I'm a Bama fan. And I mean, I'm looking at that schedule, and there's still some teams out there that could cause Bama problems. Again, in the playoff scenario, does one loss hurt them? No. It takes away their advantage. All of a sudden, they had a game advantage, and of course, everybody else lost too on Saturday. So, okay, they didn't lose that much. They didn't lose any ground really. But yeah, this was a big time. I mean, I know you're joking about them coming from Kalen DeBoer. Although I didn't go out to the message boards. Did you see the message boards at all? I'd like to see
I didn't see the message boards, but I saw message boards genius posts on Twitter. Bunch of crazy. I will say though, a couple of friends I have that are real plugged into the Alabama fan base, the general consensus was, hey, Saban lost to ULM.
His first year.
Yeah. This is DeBoer's first year. Saban lost to ULM his first year. They're all kind of not as super panicked, which fine.
Well, there's a big difference there. Saban was taking over. I remember that loss, and I remember that team. That was he was taking over a bad football team. This isn't a bad football team.
That ULM team, I don't know.
That Bama team wasn't very good. This Bama team's loaded with 4 and 5 stars. This shouldn't happen. I don't care if
true,
Vandy or them.
That is true. That is true. But again, it's one fluky loss. Caleb DeBoer is a proven winner. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's time to really doubt. And I mean, Diego Pavia he was in his bag. Like he put the team on his shoulders. He willed them to victory using supernatural means. But like, he's also done this to other, SEC teams before. Like, remember, he upset Auburn last year.
Well, that big of an achievement, really.
But with New Mexico State, there's the talent difference between Vanderbilt and New Mexico State is just as big as the talent difference between Alabama and Vanderbilt. So
but let's look ahead at Alabama's schedule. If this defense plays like this, they've still got to play Tennessee, LSU. Okay, maybe that schedule's not as bad as I thought it was at the beginning of the season. Missouri's a complete fraud. Oklahoma that can't score, and Auburn. Now, don't get me wrong. That Auburn game isn't going to be a gimme because, Auburn's actually been offensively has been bad. They just can't. They keep turning the ball over. Auburn doesn't turn the ball over. They're not a bad offensive team.
Yeah, I want to just take a second. I know we've talked. Bama's obviously the huge story here, but Clark Lee has really done an impressive job at Vanderbilt, and I think they've significantly upgraded the talent there from a point where they used to be kind of almost G5 level operating to now they have a solid Power 5 roster, and it's not going to ever be equivalent to many of the top teams in the SEC roster wise because the academic standards there and the donor base isn't as large and all that, but they are no longer just the equivalent of a G5 pushover. Like they're a real Power 5 team. And the offensive coordinator that they brought in from New Mexico State and who came from that, Beck was his name?
Tim Beck, yeah.
Tim Beck, yeah. And they came from that random D2 school. He just out coached the Alabama defense. Like they just were calling play. They knew where every check, they knew every assignment, they knew it's like they had the other team's playbook.
Offensively, they had every answer for what Bama was showing on defense. They absolutely, and that's not going to happen in every game. So, hey, you didn't answer my text message last night after this victory about Clark Lee.
What text message? I'm sorry, I got a lot of texts.
I said, is Clark Lee the next Florida head coach?
I don't think so. I think Florida, they want bigger fish.
I don't know. He could beat Bama. So
yeah. Well, that's true. I am piggybacking off the chat, by the way.
Yeah, this is, great. I mean, it was a fun game. I know everybody was dialed in. I like this ratings for this probably. The game probably didn't start off with great ratings, but at the end, everybody in the country was watching this game.
Yeah. I didn't even watch the first, quarter and a half because it's kind of like, I thought it was like the USF game. Oh, okay, Vanderbilt says 10 to set, whatever. There's a lot of other games going on. And then I started to dial in. I moved it from the third screen to the second screen. To it kind of made the rotation.
That's right. Yeah. No, but that was, I mean, you got to feel happy for someone. When this thing's happen like this is a big deal. A number one team losing to an unranked opponent. First of all, Vandy hadn't won beaten Alabama since 1984. This was a big
Vandy has never beat a top 5 team.
Yeah.
Never.
So
they were 0-60.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I just loved it. It was exciting. It was a
it was great. The goalposts are in the Cumberland River. They're marching down Broadway. They storm the field. I love all the pictures of the Vanderbilt students pointing at all the Alabama fans who try to take over their stadium. This is what college football is about. The huge upsets. There is nothing that happened in Nashville that the NFL could ever replicate.
Yeah, and when all this is going on, I know Bama's probably still going to be in the playoff picture, and the playoffs are going to be what they are.
This is why we shouldn't have expanded the playoffs.
But no, but this game was still fun, and it mattered, and we were talking about it yesterday. It didn't affect this, and I get tired of people talking about the playoff and everything. It didn't matter yesterday. This was Vandy.
I agree. The playoff, I don't watch college football for the postseason. I watch postseason because it's college football.
Yeah, I mean, so whatever. Who cares what's going to happen in the playoff? This was fun yesterday. I had a blast watching it. And again, like you said, I moved it from one screen real quickly, and all of a sudden this became my primary interest. And a lot of people, this probably wasn't the game everybody turned to. Everybody probably had their eyes on Ohio State, Iowa, or Auburn, Georgia. Those were all on the major networks. And all of a sudden,
I turned Ohio State, Iowa off in the second quarter. I was done with the game. That was the worst game of football I have ever watched in my life.
Yeah, the major networks didn't have good games yesterday. The SEC network got this one.
That was just gross to watch. It was 7-0 for most of the first half.
Yeah,
just nasty game. No, it was just horrible to watch. Not a good product. But
well, anyway, good for Vandy, and I think everybody will now think twice when they play Vandy and see what's. I don't think anybody will take them lightly.
Yeah, I agree. They got Kentucky next week, and if you don't think that they'll be hyped for that, they will be. That's a game Vanderbilt could get. I mean, honestly, Vanderbilt could get anyone if they could beat Alabama. So let's be real here.
Well, I think let me get to one more point before we go talking about some of these. I do not want to hear I don't want to hear the argument now that because Vandy beat Bama, that Vandy's so good and the SEC is so good. Remember, go back to week 1. We were talking about how bad Virginia Tech is because they lost to a terrible Vanderbilt team. This Vanderbilt team lost to Georgia State. Don't start making an argument for me that the SEC is so tough now.
No, but I
so
do want to give Vanderbilt the roses. Like, they beat
they
Alabama.
won. Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to take anything away from them. But that doesn't mean that I'm praising Alabama because it's a good loss.
SEC
Like,
is a
no.
dumpster fire.
It's a
this
horrible
year.
loss. Alabama should never lose to Vanderbilt. They should never. They lost to
Quality
Vanderbilt.
loss.
It's a bad loss.
for
It is
Virginia.
not a quality loss.
Nope. This is a dumpster fire conference this year. All
The
these teams are
SEC
mediocre in the
is
SEC.
not a good conference this year. It's Texas and everybody else.
Yeah, and after Tennessee last night, I'm going along. I think
If you look at the combination of Alabama and Georgia, who played a really close, tight game. Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. Alabama did lose to Vanderbilt and struggled with USF for 3 quarters. The SEC, besides Texas, is not a good conference.
the conference is living on its reputation and the media bias, and that's what's carrying this conference. I look at the AP poll today, I'm going, my gosh.
How is Missouri still ranked? Who have they beaten?
The biggest frauds ever.
They beat Vanderbilt. Alabama
Yeah.
couldn't even do what. Don't get me started. How is
All right.
Notre Dame in the teens? Don't get me started on the AP poll. It's a complete scam.
Yeah, so anyway, if they are at the top conference, who is? I'll tell you what, I think the Big Ten's the best conference this year. I will go right there and say it. I think the middle of the
I
Big
agree.
Ten, I think
I
the
agree.
the middle of the conferences are better right now, especially. So anyway, all right, let's go on.
Yeah.
Let's go on from that.
I think we also ought to move on to another huge upset, and that is Pig Suey, baby.
Yeah.
The Arkansas Razorbacks defeat the Tennessee Volunteers in an absolute mudfest of a football game where it seemed like neither team really wanted to win for about 3 quarters. Arkansas actually moved the ball pretty effectively. Taylon Green played pretty well. He outplayed Nico, and I don't know. I watched the second half of this game because the first half of this game I was kind of enamored with other things going on. I will say that Nico running out of bounds in the last play of the game was just terrible decision making. He looked like the freshman. I know he's a redshirt freshman. He looked like rattled in Fayetteville, and I think they couldn't get the run game going. It couldn't support him with the run game, and so he kind of had to put the team on his shoulders, and he wasn't really able to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have to go back. The last game Tennessee played was against Oklahoma, and we just thought that, looking at that game, that Tennessee, they only put up, 25 points in that game, and you go, okay, Oklahoma's pretty good defensively. Well, maybe Tennessee is starting to play better defensive teams, and maybe they're not as good offensively as we thought they were. And I think Sampson's probably one of the better running backs in the country. I think he continues to prove that. But Nico is not – I mean, this team has not been winning because of Nico. It's been winning because of Sampson and their defense.
Yeah.
And last night, Nico was, 16 to 28, only completing 57% of his passes. He was okay. Yeah, he made a bad decision at the end. Quarterback's going to do
That's
that.
a freshman decision. It happens.
Yeah,
Like,
and I blame some of that on Josh Heupel. You got to have better awareness. You got to make sure he knows what's going on there. I mean, part of that's coaching too.
Yeah.
But that loss wasn't on him. I mean, quite frankly, when Jalen goes out, Singleton comes in, and they're still Arkansas still moved the ball. So
Arkansas's run game is legit.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, that Tennessee defense is what I think was most disappointing in that game. Arkansas was a night game. They were ready for them. Defensively, they just pushed them around the line. Tennessee just didn't have an answer all night. It got physical, and all of a sudden, Tennessee just couldn't find an answer. It was one of those games where if I'm Tennessee, I'm a little concerned about that. If you're able to get pushed around that much on the line, wait till you play Georgia. What are they going to do to you? Because at some point, I think we said this maybe even in the preseason pod for the SEC or maybe an earlier game. At some point, Nico's going to have to make plays for you. You're just not going to rely on Sampson and that defense. And Nico hasn't proven yet that in a close game, he's going to be able to make the throws and win the game. Now, he may, and I
can make some incredible one-off throws that almost no one else in the country can make.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, that one play where he got away and threw it 40, 50 yards down the field, that's what you see, that arm strength. but he's got to be consistent there. He wasn't last night. So the other thing I will say, and just watching, I had this game on pretty much the whole time on one of my screens. I know, Josh, this offense is really a running offense if you ask Josh Heupel. But I think they've got to probably try early on to try to throw the ball a little bit more. I think, are they afraid to throw the ball?
I don't know. I think Arkansas just sold out against the run, and that's when you're supposed to beat them with the pass. Like, that's the whole point of the veer and shoot. Spread everybody out. When they go run, you go pass. You zig where they zag. That's the whole point of the veer and shoot offense. But it's like they didn't know how to readjust because every other team was selling out against the pass against them, and Arkansas was like, no, we're going to sell out against the run, and it's like they didn't know how to readjust.
I don't know. I'd like to see them maybe. I'd like to see Nico a little bit more. I'd like to see more opportunities, but yeah, I mean, I still believe in this team, and they've still got a lot ahead of them. That Tennessee-Bama matchup is going to be awesome in a few weeks, but this was disappointing. Again, it's Tennessee's first loss. It doesn't throw them out of any playoff picture. They're still everything's in front of them. Arkansas, good for them. I had written off Sam Pittman earlier in the year and before the season.
Did Sam Pittman save his job with this?
They've got 4 wins. Do they get to 5 or 6 wins with this? Do they?
They play like that? Maybe.
If they get to a bowl, yes. If they only win one more game the rest of the year, does he save his job?
If it's a big game, maybe.
Maybe so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So, good for Arkansas.
All right, and that's only 2 of the insane games that we had. Yeah. So, which we would talk about first? You want to go to Minneapolis or Seattle?
No, let's go to our Big Ten disappointments. Yes, either one.
Big disappointments. Yeah, so let's talk about Michigan, Washington. Got my Big Ten W's mixed up. So Washington, congrats for the revenge game, I guess, for the fans with none of the same players on either team. So congrats, you avenged your title loss, whatever. I would like to say that Michigan still has no quarterback, and yes, Jack Tuttle came in and was okay. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Like, they haven't had one all year. It has not gotten better. They tried to run the option. They tried to run play action. They can't stretch the ball vertically. And also, besides not having a quarterback, they don't have receivers. So that becomes a bit of a problem whenever you get down in a game. And so they were able to squeak past USC with an insane run by Donovan Edwards and some Khalil Mullings heroics, but that was not enough against Washington. I don't know. I just feel like Michigan was just kind of bleh on offense the whole game. Their defense is really good, but Washington looked good. They kind of eliminated a lot of the mistakes that kind of hurt them in some of the previous games, like in the Apple Cup. They didn't really make some of the dumb play calls that they had previously made. So good on Washington. They're now 3-2. Am I correct?
Yeah. I don't know their direct.
Yeah, because they lost to Rutgers and Wazoo. So
this is Washington's 4-2 now.
Oh, 4-2. My bad. There was 3-2 coming in. Yeah.
I mean, Will Rogers has quietly put together a pretty good season. Their problem was they weren't scoring in the red zone. They did what they needed to do last night. Michigan's just a flawed team this year, and they're out on their third quarterback. Offensively, they're going to struggle to score and they're not going to figure that out this year. I don't expect to see anyone just magically figure this problem out, which means there's more losses coming from Michigan. Yeah. This is not a playoff team, in my opinion. But their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. And so they're going to win. They may win a game, which we don't think they're going to win, and then they're going to lose a game, which we go, oh, gosh, they shouldn't lose. They should.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, when they play Indiana's going to be the favorite. I mean, that's crazy to say that, but Indiana should be favored.
I think Indiana I would expect them to beat Michigan, which is crazy. But yeah.
But I mean, Will Rogers was very effective last night. You're just not – Michigan's not going to score enough points, and Washington it did enough to win the game. And I never really felt like in the second half that even though I think Michigan had the lead. I think it was 17-14 probably in the third quarter. But I never really – and I think I watched pretty much the entire game. I never was really thought that it felt like, it was 17-14 in the third. but I always felt like, Washington's going to win this game. It's just a matter of time before they score. And they did. And then it was never really, I felt like, in doubt in the fourth. I think Washington's going to be a team. Washington's not going to be an easy team for some of these Big Ten teams to beat, because I don't think Will Rogers is a veteran, and I think he completes a lot of passes. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. I think he's thrown, was that his first interception of the year yesterday? Maybe. I think it was his first interception all year.
Yeah.
And that's against the Michigan defense. So I think a lot of teams are going to play Washington and realize, they're not last year's team, but they're still pretty good, and they've got players. So,
I mean, Jed Fish is a good coach, so
he is. It's just they look different from last year, but Michigan just I think they'll go to a bowl, but they're not going to. You can count them out of any playoff talk. And by the way, Washington was the favorite, and and they were expected to win. So
So again, the AP poll being stupid is a common theme throughout the entire show. It's top 10 upset, but Washington was favored to win. So,
but that's not the Big Ten game that I was surprised at. I mean,
I thought that would kind of happen. They were favored.
The other one was the one that got me.
Yeah, this I did not see coming. USC losing to Minnesota. Man, and it was the final score was 24-17, but that was after the touchdown at the end. So I didn't get a ton of eyes on this game until the fourth quarter. I saw the shenanigans that happened with PJ Fleck and the goal line, and did he go in? Did he not go in? Again, we're having a lot of what is indisputable evidence debates. So the call at the end, I think they got the right call. Was it indisputable evidence? I'm not sure. I actually like that they're just going with what people think is the right call instead of like indisputable. We can't really tell. He was across the goal line. It was pretty clear, but you couldn't see the ball, so it was indisputable. Anyway, I don't know. But what surprised me was that Miller Moss was just mediocre. Like, he had been an elite quarterback all season, and he was 60% completion, 2 interceptions. I mean, 200 yards on 38 attempts is not fantastic. That's a pretty dink and dunking with 2 picks.
Where did Zachariah Branch go? Through 3 catches for 10 yards. Did they forget he existed?
I don't know. I mean, and I didn't think Minnesota's DBs were that good.
No. This was, first of all, the problem, you and I were at the Michigan USC game, and we thought, and you go back, and we talked about this, that Michigan, USC had problems with the offensive line.
Yeah.
They seemed to solve some of it in the second half. And go back in this game yesterday, they have the same offensive line problems. They're just not very good on the offensive line, and this is creating problems for Moss.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And so I don't know how you fix that at this point of the season. And so they just got Big Ten is what happened.
They got Big Ten.
I'm a little worried about this team now. If you can't beat Minnesota, and we on our podcast Wednesday night, I thought PJ Fleck's in trouble. I figured you look at that schedule.
You had basically fired it.
I fired him as of Wednesday night.
Yeah, did PJ Fleck and Sam Pittman save their jobs this weekend?
Yeah, I think the time difference too. We'll get to that in a second. That's another point I want to make. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I know Miller Moss. He's not Caleb Williams. Let's get that out straight. But I thought he was a good enough quarterback, and I just think it's I think it's a line issue. They're not getting the protection they need to get the ball where they need to, and it seems to be criminal that you can't give Branch more looks. I don't know what the issue is.
Yeah, I actually think I like Miller Moss. I think he's probably a top 15 quarterback in the country, but with no offensive line, and he's not as mobile. Like, also, a lot of quarterbacks, if they're super mobile, can kind of get around that not having an offensive line. He's really good when he has a clean pocket. His processing is certainly excellent, but he's not super mobile, and so you have to have a good O-line for him. And when they're just not able to block, you see it really affects his accuracy.
Yeah. So someone in the chat mentioned the time difference thing, and I saw this stat yesterday is all these Big Ten teams that are having to travel across multiple time zones are really having a problem. And I wish I'd have kept the stat and I didn't save it for the show. But I wonder if there's something to that, is that all this travel is finally catching up to teams. Something to think about.
That is an interesting idea. It's also who the teams are. Like, if Purdue and Northwestern were on the West Coast, I don't think there's much of a problem. It's Oregon and USC and Washington.
I understand.
Indiana went out and whooped UCLA.
That's true.
I think it's part. It's not a coincidence that the teams that got picked by the Big Ten are also the teams that are better at football. So,
I did not see this one coming. USC. I thought they were.
No, I didn't. I did not. But yeah,
and
I don't know.
And Lincoln's got. I mean, this is year 3, Lincoln Riley. I mean, I know they've got to they should be better than this.
Yeah, their offensive line recruiting has really been lacking. And I don't know if that's a California thing where you just can't get the kids out there, because the California just doesn't have the prospects, or I don't know what it is, but their O-line is lagging severely behind other elite teams.
Maybe they need a better algorithm.
Yeah. Speaking of the algorithm,
let's get to that game.
One of the more insane games I have ever witnessed yesterday. It was the Miami Cal game. I kept thinking, like, please let me go to bed. It's 1:30. Cal, please just put the game away so I can go to sleep. And they never did. So Cal, at one point, was up. It was
35 to 10.
35 to 10. They were up 25 points, right? And at that point, you were basically like, all right, it's over, right?
25-10 in the third quarter, yeah.
In the third quarter, it's clearly over. And you were doing the math, the possession math in your head, and you're like, they'd have to run essentially 3 perfect 2-minute drill drives and stop Cal, which they had not been able to do all night. Miami, that is. I had not stopped Cal all night. They have to get 3 stops and run 3 perfect 2-minute drill drives, which they also hadn't done all night. And you're like, okay, what are the odds that this happens? And then Cam Ward was like, all right, bet. And man, he just went off. He had that. This was an up and down night for Cam Ward. He had that horrible like 35-yard sack, which was just crazy bad. And like where he should have thrown the ball away, and he just kept holding and holding. He's like, I'm going to just jog around and see if I can throw the ball. Oh no, I'm sacked. Like, terrible play. However, he also did some incredible made some incredible plays, including one like 35-yard dart in between 2 defenders down the field to put Miami in the red zone on their second 2-minute drive, eventually leading in a touchdown. He took off and ran when he needed to and scored. Yes, ought to go was definitely present. He was fast. He scored a lot on Miami's defense, but Miami's defense, they bowed up when they really needed to. And honestly, that was an incredible comeback that I did not expect. Cal really looked like they had it in the bag. And I don't really blame Wilcox for the fall off, because Cal doesn't have the same caliber of athletes that Miami does. Possible exception of like 2 positions maybe. So basically, once Miami was like, all right, we're better, we're going to play better, there wasn't a whole lot Cal could do except like hang on for dear life. You're on an inner tube and your uncle just got control of the boat. Like, there wasn't much that Cal tried. They tried to run the clock. They did everything they possibly could, but Cam Ward was just unstoppable. And Miami, he kept dumping off. There was multiple 4th downs where Cam Ward converted. Restrepo was excellent. The Miami running back was really good. It was just a crazy game.
Yeah. You get the feeling that Miami in the last 2 games, they're better than their opponents, but sometimes they're just not always playing like it. I mean, they're just sort of, do we need to do this? And sometimes, you're going to get burned at some point. You're going to lose a game if you keep playing like that. And Cam Ward, as good as he is, and man, he was on fire at some points. Sometimes he just throws off that back foot lazily. That's how he got that 1 pick.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes some pretty boneheaded moves at some point. But man, when he's on, he is on. I mean, and like last week against Tech, when he needs to make plays, they make plays. This is an incredibly talented team that I think when they're playing at the highest level can play with anybody in the country from what we've seen offensively. But they also, when they are not playing at their best, can lose to anybody. I mean, they've proven that. So I just don't know which team you're going to get. And heaven forbid, I'm going to bet them at -10.5 again. That was stupid of me.
No, I'm never betting Miami.
I'm not betting
After
them again.
watching
I'm not
this
betting
week.
Louisville again. Even though I think Louisville can score points. So, I mean, I watched this game this morning because I'm like you, I didn't want to stay up, but I watched it this morning. And, again, they're super, super talented. They just have, the times, they dig themselves a hole, and then they got to come back. And at some point, that's not going to work. I cannot wait for them to play Clemson because I think this would be a real interesting game.
That's going to be a great game.
But, props to them. They keep finding ways to win. And sometimes that's a sign of a good team. So what else more do you have to say? I think Cam Ward, I mean, what was 437 yards, 35 of 53. He's got to be playing his way into the Heisman Trophy. If anybody's watching
I think
him,
isn't he either second or third in the Heisman odds right now?
Should be, because he's just outstanding right now. He really is. He's having a great season, and the more he gets, some more people watch him, and just how he's just making plays all over the field. He should at least be going to New York. No, great win for Miami. They'll continue rolling here. Again, I think somebody's going to get them if they keep doing this.
Yeah, if they don't get it together, somebody will get them. When Cam Ward at his peak, he's unbelievable and probably the best quarterback in the country when he's on. But he's just got to clean it up.
We're in the ACC, so let's give our fans in the chat what they want. Let's talk about those fighting Tony Elliots in Charlottesville.
I didn't catch a single second of this game.
Come on, Jake. I raised you better than that. Come on.
I'm sorry. There was a lot going on.
Man, come on. You cannot miss some ACC action like that.
I was scoreboard watching for this one.
Boston College, UVA with a half-empty Scott Stadium. Okay, first of all, I know it's tough to be a UVA football fan, especially when we see basketball season just on the horizon. But the fans have got to do better than that. The game was close, and the stadium was empty in the second half. That was a joke, UVA fans. And I'm calling you out right now on our show. You knew better. Be better, UVA. No, I mean, listen, they played pretty well the second half. I mean, I thought they got down for early. They came back. They kept fighting. They made some plays. I still think the guy was out of bounds on the defensive touchdown. I thought they screwed that call up. But, give UVA credit. This was a game they lose probably in the last few years. So, this team is 4-1. I'm not sure they win another game. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, they might not.
They might not, but they've won the games this year that, probably more than I thought. So I like Calandria. I do. I think, who knows? Can they get to a bowl? I'd love to see them get to a bowl. But I also don't like Tony Elliott. Y'all know this who've watched this. I'm not a big fan. But prove me wrong, Prove me wrong. I'm waiting for basketball season.
Yeah. As a Baylor fan, same here.
Yeah. We
got obliterated by Iowa State.
I'm afraid of what, and I don't, I don't think Virginia Tech's a great team either, but I'm just afraid of that game at the end of the season. All right, we're staying in the ACC for any other games. Do we need to talk about? You want to talk about SMU and Louisville?
Yeah. So this was the easiest over cash ever. Couple thoughts on this game. I watched this game. This was a very exciting game. I watched most of this game. Dialed in. Great game. SMU's offense is legit. They're very good. Ever since they swapped out the quarterback. Well, okay, don't claim some superiority here. They were awful with Preston Stone. So you had no idea that they were going to.
The entire team.
You had no idea that Preston Stone was going to be bad and they were going to switch him out. You don't get the claim.
I believe in the entire SMU program.
All right. Yeah. Kevin Jennings was fantastic. 21 of 27 for 281 yards, 10 yards an attempt. He was great. Yeah. They ran the ball really effectively. Louisville could not really stop them, even though Louisville had great pass rush. Jennings was able to avoid that. Him being mobile has really helped SMU's offense. And the system that Rhett Lashley runs is much better with a mobile quarterback. SMU is a legit offense. And I say offense because SMU's defense is atrocious. Louisville played pretty badly and still was able to score 27 points. Like, I don't think SMU's defense is very good. That's going to cost them another game or two down the road.
Who? SMU or Louisville?
I think it might cost SMU another game down the road. Even with I understand their schedule is incredibly easy. But if SMU can't stop people from scoring, that is going to be a problem.
They don't play anybody, Jay.
I know they don't play anybody.
Nobody. They're done. They're done.
Are we going to have it come down to a tiebreaker between Clemson is one loss SMU going to be left out of the ACC title game and get into the playoff as an at-large?
I've not looked at how. Let's say either Clemson or Miami loses a game in the ACC. What's the tiebreaker?
I don't know. But, I mean, hypothetically, if Clemson and Miami both win out, they're in the title game. They're both undefeated in the ACC.
If one of them loses, they're not going to be because SMU is not going to lose an ACC game. They are going to be undefeated in the SEC.
Yeah.
And they're going to they
do have a legit offense. Like, I think SMU's offense is very good.
They've got to go to Stanford, which nobody shows up to those games. Did you see the crowd at that game for the Virginia Tech?
Yeah, there were like 11 people there.
I think Atlee has more people at their home game. So
unironically, yeah.
They go at Duke, and I know Manny Diaz is better. It's still Duke. They get
5-0 Duke.
Pitt, okay, better. They get Boston College.
Or 5-1, I guess. Yeah.
They go at Virginia. Stop, Reed. I don't. Yeah, they're not. Virginia's not beating. They get Cal. Now, Cal will be a game that I think will be interesting. That's the last game of the season. I'm telling you, SMU is going to be 11-1, undefeated in the ACC, and the ACC is going to have a real problem if Miami or Clemson drop one game.
So, is it time to talk about the ACC as a 3-bid league?
You're killing me. Come on, ESPN will never allow that. You know better.
The SEC looks pretty bad this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, we have problems setting up. That's why Miami can't afford a loss. Neither can Clemson in the conference. They've got to stand defeated, or else they're going to be locked out. Because then, how are you going to explain? Let's not even get to the playoff talk. Let's just stop.
We don't need to talk playoff. It's week 6. We got craziness.
I do think SMU's schedule is really light, and they won the game they need to. Their only loss was to BYU, who, by the way, is leading the Big 12.
So fun little fact that I've seen on Twitter, Twitter X, is that the last time that Vandy beat Alabama and BYU was undefeated was 1984, and BYU ended up winning the national championship. So, I don't know, BYU fans, did the Mormon God, did Joseph Smith send the vision to Diego Pavia? I don't know.
He wrote it on tablet somewhere.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Diego Pavia received. Yes, yeah, all are Mormon fans for sure. I don't know. What else? Anything else any other games you want to kind of hit on?
I mean, we
could talk for another hour about this weekend.
Good. We didn't even talk about my fraudulent team. You know, if you listen to our podcast on Wednesday, when we gave out our first month.
Yeah,
award,
you were right. To all the credit. Go ahead.
This was one of my awards was the Bernie Madoff Award for the biggest fraud ever. Was the Missouri Tigers. They're the biggest paper tigers. Boy, did they prove me so right on Saturday. They just got blasted by Texas A&M. Wegman was back. Wegman looked really good. I mean, I don't know where he went while he was gone. I don't know if he went to Buc-ee's and he got a brisket sandwich. I don't know what happened. He looks really good. They just slaughtered Missouri. Missouri has no business being in the top 25. I cannot believe the poll that came out today that still has them in the top 25. This Missouri team is fraudulent. Cook is not even a Jag plus. He's barely a Jag. Okay. Anyway, Missouri, I'm fading them every single time. I mean, this team is terrible. So.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I was wrong on Missouri. I took them to cover. First of all, I didn't think the most surprising thing to me about that game is Connor Wegman looked like the player that we all thought he was coming into the season. He looked like a rock-solid quarterback. Now, some of this you can give up to the fact that Missouri just decided, hey, we're never going to blitz the entire game. And they never did, except twice maybe. He kind of had unlimited time in the pocket to, make reads, and he looked great. Because when you have time pocket, a lot of quarterbacks look great. But he also, credit to Connor Wegman, he executed a lot of great throws against Missouri. Yeah. That game could have been more of a blowout than it even showed on the screen. Yeah,
Are we ready for Texas A&M Part 2 in the SEC championship game?
Are we ready for Army-Navy 2 weeks in a row in the AAC championship game and then the Army-Navy game?
Yeah. The other game we got to get to real quickly. Last week we were all over Ole Miss for losing. They were the one team in a week full of upsets. They're the one team that took care of business.
They did.
You thought South Carolina would give them a hard time. I thought Ole Miss would bounce back pretty easily. They did. They won. It wasn't.
Well, I mean, Jackson Dart played pretty well for having, been shot in the chest a couple of times.
Yeah. So this leads us up to that nice. We'll talk about this matchup, this Ole Miss LSU matchup on Wednesday night. But looking forward to seeing that. So Jake, what other games we hit on? Let's hit on some other Big 12 SEC action. Florida actually looks good against UCF, which I'm surprised that UCF laid that big an egg, but Florida looked pretty good all night Saturday.
Yeah, I think we're just fading UCF's defense the rest of the year. They are horrible on defense. If you make Florida's offense look good, your defense is really bad.
Well, UCF also couldn't run the ball. I mean, that was the thing.
That's true. That's true as well. UCF's offense wasn't fantastic, but I don't know. That was the battle of mid, in my opinion. So,
well,
I don't think either of those teams is very good. I've kind of flipped my opinion on UCF from the start of the season, but
Florida's only losses are to Texas A&M and Miami, so that doesn't look so bad. However, their schedule's they've still got to play Texas A&M, right? They play Texas A&M. Yeah, I think they play Texas A&M, Georgia, LSU.
They lost to Texas A&M.
Oh no, they lost Texas. They still got to play Texas, Georgia, LSU. Yeah, they've got a brutal schedule.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah. So I don't know about that. You know who has sneakily been moving up in the polls and is actually in a good position to make the playoff? The Clemson Tigers, who took care of business at Florida State. Florida State they finally got rid of DJU. They started Brock Glenn, who was just okay. He had a couple of good throws, not great all around.
I don't think he was that bad. I think he was. I think he was better than DJU.
He had like 50% completion rate and an interception. He was better than DJU. That's true. But that's a really low bar.
Against the Clemson defense, I think you give him a couple of starts. I think he's going to be. I think he'll give them a chance to win some games down the stretch.
Maybe you're right. Florida State did kind of play a little better than I thought they would against Clemson. I thought Clemson would kind of completely blow the doors off of them, and it wasn't really ever in doubt. It was never in doubt. But Florida State showed they didn't quit.
No, they didn't.
They didn't give up. They kind of slugged along and Clemson would have loved to hang 50 on them, and Florida State didn't let them.
Yeah.
So
no, they have not quit on. They haven't quit from Norvell yet, so that's good. A couple other games that we probably won't touch on much. We joked about it earlier. Ohio State just rolled over Iowa. It was never really in doubt. It was actually pretty. It was pretty, I think, early in the second quarter or in the second quarter.
Yeah, I turned it off at that point.
I turned it off. I couldn't.
Cade McNamara missed 3 throws in the first quarter that would have given Iowa a chance. And at that point, I was like, all right, so we're doing this.
Yeah. I had my eyes on Auburn, Georgia for quite a little while. Auburn.
It was sneaky for a little bit there, but
sneaky the first half.
I think Georgia first half unders and first half spreads against Georgia.
Every time. Georgia first half under.
Yeah, Georgia first half under seems to be a lock at this point. No matter the game.
Yeah. I mean, that game got to 14-10 early in the third, and I'm thinking, okay. And then Georgia scores, 2 touchdowns in a row, and it's 28-10.
Auburn made a couple boneheaded play calls, and that was that.
So, but Georgia, that's the kind of victory you expected to get from Georgia, bounce back. Again, Georgia's got some tough. They've got Texas coming up here in a couple of weeks. They've got some tough matchups coming. So not a real big test for them. Big win for Nebraska. I know it's Rutgers, but Rutgers has been playing well.
Rutgers is good.
Rutgers is good.
Good team.
And Nebraska,
solid football team.
Nebraska needed to get under its belt. Nebraska's now got 5 wins? They're getting close to.
How is Missouri ranked and Nebraska's not?
I don't know.
What is that crap. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I have no
completely
idea.
ridiculous. No one who votes in these polls watches any of the games. I'm convinced. It's
Because Kirk Herbstreit and the ESPN Mafia are got control of everything.
Did you see the article comparing Ohio State's disappointing win over Iowa where they blew them out of water compared to Georgia's magnificent win against Auburn where they struggled in the third quarter? It's insane. The SEC bias that exists in the ESPN
It's
complex.
sickening. It's why I won't even go on ESPN. I can't stand it.
I have deleted the ESPN app. I hate ESPN streaming app. It's terrible. It just annoys the absolute crap out of me.
College football fans, come here for the real truth.
Yeah, we'll give you the truth.
Anyway, hey, congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers. They are now bowl eligible.
Yeah, that is Kurt Signetti. Google him. He wins.
I want one of those Sigs t-shirts.
Coach Sig t-shirts, the Marlboro Red Coach Sig t-shirts. Yeah.
I wonder if Philip Morris or Altria is going to be upset about the copyright infringement.
Probably not. They don't get any good advertising now anyway.
Man, yeah, Indiana, let's go, man. I mean, Indiana could go. I mean, we heard a couple of podcasts. I think our good guys at Cover 3 talked about this, and even Ari and Andy's show on 3. They talked about this. Could Indiana get to 11-1 if they beat Michigan? Could they do that?
Are we prepared for number 11 seed Indiana in the playoff?
Mind blown.
Oh man. Imagine the 10 and 11 seeds in the playoff are 11-1 SMU and 11-1 Indiana.
Kirk Signetti, future University of Florida head football coach. I think it's the third person that I've mentioned is Florida head football coach.
Yeah, I mentioned that, and you were like, "No, he's not going to leave." No,
63, and I heard Andy Staples talk about that. It's funny you mentioned that. I heard Ari and Andy this week talk about that, and Andy said he doesn't fit the profile of what they're looking for. And so
winning games.
Yeah, but it's not really. Like I said, I think they're looking for something like a.
I think at this era in college football, you hire a guy that wins games, and then you hire a general manager to buy you players.
I told you. You go back to our pod back in the earlier year. I told you who's the guy that's going to be on all these lists. Rhett Lashley. I told you if SMU has a good season, Rhett Lashley.
Yeah, people are already talking about Baylor head coach Rhett Lashley.
He's not going to take the Baylor job. I told you he's an Arkansas grad. He played quarterback at Arkansas.
Well, if they don't fire Sam Pittman, that job's not going to be available.
Yeah. Guess who is going to be available? Florida. And if he's got 11-1, you watch how fast his name goes up those charts.
Maybe.
I don't know. We don't know yet.
It wouldn't surprise me if it wouldn't surprise me. He would take the Baylor job. Baylor can pay more.
Kenny's gonna have the Baylor job. They probably already got the contract signed.
I don't know. I've heard that. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we're going off the rails here. We're getting off the rails.
I just want to touch on
real speculation podcast when people get fired.
I just want to touch on real quick. I feel like this has got to be a weekly segment. Ashton Jeanty.
Yes.
He rushed for 186 yards, averaging 14.3 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns. Another incredible day. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That was only in the first half.
It's crazy. And
then he decided to sit out the second half. He's like, you know what? I'm done. Boise State blew out Utah State, who's really bad. They blew him out 62-30. I put $3 on Ashton Jeanty after his performance in week 1 for Heisman. At plus 6,500, he is now the Heisman frontrunner, and they want me to cash out my $3 bet for $51. I've been debating. I kind of have the whole week to decide whether or not to cash it or not because the lines don't really move till after games. I don't know if I should cash it or not, but man, that was a great use of $3. He's insane. Yeah, I think he should win the Heisman.
Who should?
Jeanty. He's already passed 1,000 yards in 5 games. That's insane.
Yeah, he's on a pretty incredible pace. I'm with you. I've gotten on board. It's pretty amazing.
And there's no defensive line they're going to face until maybe UNLV kind of could stop them, but I don't even know then. Probably until the playoff, nobody can stop Jeanty, in my opinion.
Yeah, let it ride, Jake. Let it ride. So
yeah.
All right, we're coming up on an hour. We're not going to go over an hour because our good listeners probably have something more important to do with their lives than listen to us talk. But man, that was
you don't want to talk about Appalachian State, Marshall?
No, I have no desire to talk about them. So
Pitt beat North Carolina.
Yeah, surprise.
Good job for Pitt.
Mac Brown farewell tour continues. So
yes, fade Carolina is the move.
All right. So All right. So anyway, let's see. So we're gonna go. We'll do what Wednesday night with our big weekend predictions.
Yeah, I think we'll do Wednesday night with predictions.
9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just for the chat, Ball State. There you go. There's your Ball State mention.
And Jake has worn the Colorado. Somebody else in chat asked if Jake has worn the Colorado shirt. He has worn it.
Yes, you can go back
and find it
on the YouTube and you can watch that previous episode. It's all archived on there, along with some great captions that are auto-generated. So
what a fun weekend of college football, man. Can't believe the season's getting close to half over.
Yeah. Insane. This was the kind of weekend where everyone always like, oh, it's a quiet weekend that gets you. And then we all react to like, because one upset happens, like, oh, it's amazing. This weekend, it's like a nuclear bomb went off and just every team, like the best team this weekend was Texas, who didn't play.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They escaped.
I watched them play Oklahoma this weekend, and look out. Who knows?
Yeah, goodness. And, of course, next weekend is October 12th, that we've been looking forward to for months. And so tune into the preview show, and we'll have some crazy games to preview.
Absolutely. All right. Well, all right. Good to talk about these, and we'll be ready for this weekend. Can't wait. So.
Yep. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on all the socials. YouTube, follow me on at Real Hopster, YouTube, The Hoppe Huddle, on Instagram at The Hoppe Huddle. Yeah, and good night, America.
Good night, Natalie.